This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
I just MailChimped my marketing.
You MailChimped your what?
I MailChimped my marketing with AI to create an effective marketing campaign in minutes.
No, MailChimp and Way.
Yes, MailChimp and Way. Now I can hyper-personalize my campaigns across email and SMS.
You can do all that with MailChimp?
What did I just MailChimp and say?
MailChimp your marketing with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-ons. Visit MailChimp.com.
I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Uh-huh.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. We're recording this late Thursday evening because I won't be available for the rest of the weekend. So we figured it would be easier, and there is a lot to get through.
You've recused yourself.
I have. Also, by the time this gets published on Sunday, my birthday will have passed.
Uh-huh.
So thank you to everyone for their lovely messages and gifts. They are appreciated. Okay. Last night we went to go see, so Whitney Houston did that concert in South Africa back in the mid 90s, like 94, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's being re-released or released for the first time in theaters. It was released on VHS back in the day, but it's been remastered and placed in theaters. It's called Whitney Houston, The Concert for a New South Africa. And we saw it at the Alamo Draft House. You were kind enough to accompany me. So this performance, she performed 3 different nights in South Africa, and it was part of the Bodyguard World Tour.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about this concert performance on the big screen?
Well, it's always bittersweet seeing Whitney, and she was an instrument. So it's fun to see her. There were things that were a little lackluster, I think, about this production. Like there's a kind of an energetic dead zone, and then it really kind of fizzles out by the end. But I think if you like her, you're gonna like it.
Yeah, what did I like? She looks beautiful. She sounds amazing, and she looked like she was having fun.
Yes,
but I agree. There are just so many things that, and I've seen Whitney Houston live twice, and the first time, her voice was still amazing, and I think the performance was, the concert as a whole was a little better. The second time I saw her was in 2001, 2, and that was a wreck. Her voice wasn't great. It was at the casino I worked in, and she was paid $1 million to perform one show, and it seemed like she just showed up and went out there, and there was a live band, and they had sort of rehearsed, it seems, and had a set list, and she kind of just went along with them, but she didn't sound great. But it was fun seeing her on the big screen with great sound. Like, her vocals sounded great, but the production was a little janky. First of all, the concert movie started with this introduction that was how would you describe that introduction? It was not befitting of an artist at her level.
No, not at all. It felt like something you'd see at a work conference, really.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty cheesy. Like, they're outlining her accomplishments, and then some of the accomplishments were like, we didn't need to put this up here. But just the production value of that was kind of weak. And then the concert just starts.
Yeah.
And
But I would have been fine with that, kind of like that newly released Aretha concert that was celebrated in the 70s that Sidney Pollack did.
the concert
that
or the gospel album.
That took decades to come out. I think it should have just been like that, like a brief statement and then boom.
I agree. So that was kind of a rough start. Then I think the set list was really interesting because in that little janky opening, they talk about how she has all these number one hits, but then they don't do all of her hits. In fact, like you said, there is a moment like at the 2/3 point, because the concert's like 2 hours. There's a moment when she starts, so she sings I Have Nothing like halfway through, and that I think is the showstopper of the concert.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is spectacular. And if I were to, because the album that matches the concert movie we saw comes out, I think, in a month, I will definitely be listening to I Have Nothing on repeat. That's an amazing live version. But right after I Have Nothing, she sings this song called Touch the World that I was not familiar with, but she has this like local choir singing with her, these kids, and Sissy Houston's on stage
directing them. Yeah.
And that goes on for a long time. And then she sings that song Love Is. And then she goes into Jesus Loves Me, which is a song she sang for the Bodyguard soundtrack. Then she goes into Amazing Grace, and then that song Master Blaster Jammin'.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like a really long, like sort of back and forth with the audience of singing like we're jamming for Jesus.
Jamming for Jesus. That was where the energy dipped considerably for me.
Those 5 songs, how long? That was like 30 minutes.
It was too long.
It was way too long. I mean, the energy this set list was just not curated in a way that, because it's the first, she starts off with Love's in Need of Love Today, which I thought was such a really odd start to the concert. And she just comes out already kind of sweating and then sings a song that's not hers. But then she goes into So Emotional, Love Will Save the Day, which are both up-tempo songs. But I thought the orchestration of them, like the vocal audio was very strong, but the music wasn't. So it kind of felt like the world's best karaoke.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And then, the songs that I think everyone loves are I Want to Dance with Somebody and How Will I Know? And those were fun.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that this set list is arranged in a way that is not effective. And also, I think that the viewing we saw was pretty sold out.
It was full, yeah.
But people were walking out at a point.
Well, they looked younger. They don't have attention spans, these children today. But there were I recognized a couple people in there.
Yeah.
Well, at least one. I'm pretty sure the creator of Noah's Ark was there.
And, just like myself, like people of a particular age who, were big Whitney fans in the 80s, that seemed to be what was in the audience. And so people were really enjoying it. I did too. But then after that 30 minutes sort of like odd segment, then she sings I Will Always Love You, which was beautiful. And then she goes into I'm Every Woman, which is an encore. And her encore includes I'm Every Woman, Greatest Love of All. And then she sings Home from The Wiz.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought the set list was odd. Also, the vocal arrangements, like the way she was singing the songs, was very frustrating to me because she's not singing it like from the radio. So it was a little like, and I know I've heard other artists like Toni Braxton say that they like to do that just to show that they're singing live.
Or maybe they're bored,
Or they're bored, or maybe like, just like trying to do that while singing live and trying to have breath control. They have to take pauses. I'm not a vocalist, so I don't know, except that, I am glad we got to see it. And I do really like Whitney Houston, and her voice sounded amazing. She is so beautiful, but she also has 5 costume changes.
Was it that many? I thought it was.
Okay, the first one is she's wearing this purple, like like pantsuit with a jacket that looked like she was like a jazzy church secretary. And then her wig is like this updo. It just looked very like
She likes all one colors a lot.
I thought her opening outfit was kind of like, okay, you look like you're going to give a talk at like a Christian conference. I don't know.
Well, she is every woman, right?
Then she changes into this beautiful gown that's like this mustard color with a head wrap on.
That was probably the best look, but towards the end of that outfit's tenure, where we get to jam into Jesus and we get a lot of camera work behind her, she was giving me Maria Montez starring in Cobra Woman.
But she's beautiful. Then she changes into, is it that red number?
Oh God, that was hideous.
That was one of the more,
it was kind of shocking.
It was shocking how unappealing that outfit was. It was like she was wearing a tube top with a mini skirt, but then there was a nude illusion. And then she had a matching headdress that reminded me of Betty Davis as the Virgin Queen.
Yes, or a strawberry shortcake. But the nude illusion or whatever that business was isn't the same color as her skin tone.
No, so, like if she were on Drag Race, they would have clowned her ass.
She would have been ripped apart, yeah.
She almost looked like if someone had like a double cheeseburger, but the meat was rare.
Oh.
Like it was not cute. And then for her encore, she sings one song in the encore and then she goes, "Do you mind if I step away for a minute?" And then she comes out wearing what looked like one of those prom dresses from Charlotte Russe back when I was in high school in the 90s.
Yeah.
It did look like $100 prom dress. And then at that point she had taken off the headdress, so her wig was kind of like mashed to her head and sweaty. It was a very odd.
It was odd, but whatever it is, it was an improvement on the thing she had been wearing. So
that third outfit was shocking.
Yeah. So
whoa.
Whatever the change was, it was a relief.
But by the time this comes out, it will be out of theaters. I think the final night for it to be in theaters is the 27th, I believe.
Sunday.
So maybe people can catch it the day this podcast comes out. But I know that it will come out on video after maybe. But otherwise, the live album will be available, and I think that's sufficient. She sounds great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's so many topics to talk about. So the Los Angeles County District Attorney, George Gascon, he announced today that he is going to recommend that Eric and Lyle Menendez be resentenced.
Uh-huh.
So that means that based on current laws, that the short version is that they are eligible for parole immediately because they were both convicted of murder. Current law dictates that if you're convicted for murder, like that level of murder under the age of 26, then you can only spend a certain amount of time in prison. So based on that, they would be eligible for parole now. And he went on to say that they have paid their debt to society, but reiterated that this is just a recommendation. Like his word is not what's going to happen. There's an entire process that follows. Then he stressed that the brothers did commit these horrible acts and didn't want to excuse their murder, but they were 19 and 21 years old at the time and responded similarly to other abuse victims who were sentenced differently. So they're now 53 and 56. They've spent 30 years in prison on a journey of rehabilitation. So there's that.
So good, so good, so good.
Justin and so good. Thousands of winter deals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of fresh reasons to rack.
Because we get the latest trends for way less.
I've been looking for these.
The best deals go fast.
Save big with up to 60% off Sam Edelman, Sorel, Free People, Kohan, and more cold weather finds. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Starbucks Iced Apple Crisp Oat Milk Shaken Espresso. Made with blonde espresso, creamy oat milk, and spiced apple flavors. It's an icy crisp sip you can enjoy all autumn long. Order ahead on the Starbucks app.
Interesting. I wonder what they're gonna do when they get out.
Well, you know, I that is a very long time to spend in prison, and
they spent more time in prison than they have been than they did out of it. So,
and their family came out in support of them being released. Now that the family believes that they were abused. So, I mean, I guess if the family of the victims are okay with it, then who am I to say? Because didn't we just listen to a podcast where where like a wife was suspected of killing her husband, like that Boston police officer. We listened to that the other day.
Uh-huh.
And her family and his family were like against her. Like they, so, I mean, I guess I don't know.
Well, thankfully, I don't have to make those decisions, but I do know there are a lot of other people that are sitting in prison that could use that kind of attention too.
Well, that was my immediate thought, is I hope that we revisit a lot of people's sentencing then, because I'm sure that the Menendez brothers aren't the only ones who were convicted of murder under certain circumstances
and that would
meet this
age.
criteria.
Yeah.
So, but then of course the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So this was, their high profile inmates. And then I'm sure with the popularity on social media of the Netflix series that we reviewed, if anyone's interested, on YouTube, then I honestly don't have an opinion. I mean, there are people who, well, you listen to me sometimes listening to true crime stuff, and there are people who commit crimes that seem worse than this, and they get less time.
Yeah, I agree. Or,
you know what I mean?
There are people that do things that I'm like, I think that you're more far gone down the road of the sociopath than either of the Menendez brothers maybe were ever. So,
and they get less time.
But also, again, how punitive do we want to be? And this is not a country. This is a country of incarceration. Other countries don't do that. They want to rehabilitate people. So,
right.
If rehabilitation is the name of the game and they meet what our criteria is of that, then I don't know, why not? And then we can stop talking about them.
Well, that's a good point, because these two were lucky they were sentenced and imprisoned in California, because California is more liberal when it comes to that.
That's
because
true.
If they were in like the South somewhere,
but it's crazy to think
they probably would have been executed.
Back when they were on trial, there was the death penalty, though.
Mm-hmm. But I only brought it up because it's big. Well, I don't know if this is news in other states, but being Los Angelinos, this is like front page local news.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then I read another headline that after refusing to promote his controversial film Cruising back in the 80s, Al Pacino revealed that he donated all the money he made from it to charity.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
What charity?
Oh, that's a good question.
Not the Salvation Army, I hope, because they're homophobic. But so I'm assuming he meant that because he felt a certain way based on the blowback he was getting from the gay community.
Yes. He said, okay, so I took the money, and it was a lot, and I put it in an irrevocable trust fund. I gave it to charities, and with the interest, it was able to last a couple of decades. I don't know if it eased my conscience, but at least the money did some good.
See, I think that's another. There was a certain cultural context going on that, and Cruising was the scapegoat of that context, or one of the things that was a scapegoat of it. Because I actually think that is a great film that is ahead of its time.
We also reviewed that film on YouTube.
Yeah, like that. I think is a film that's worth recuperation. It's funny, all these actors, they got the brunt of it though. It's like Tom Hanks talking about how like he would never do Philadelphia today, and it's like, come on. But what they're confronted with by people criticizing them as cis hetero men playing gay people, I get that reaction, but at the same time, it's like we can't reinvent the past. These people did these films, and there are things that are worth that everything is compromised, everything, but there are things that are worthwhile, and we learn from. as we constantly are as a culture moving forward. So it makes me feel bad to hear him say that, to make it seem like he had some kind of burden to carry about cruising, because I think that's a fantastic film. And I think that he gave a really good performance in it that seemed really committed and sincere.
Yeah. Okay, another headline. Former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch indicted on sex trafficking charges.
I saw that.
I brought this up because back in over like 2.5 years ago, we reviewed White Hot, The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch. And I remember thinking when we watched it, and I commented in the video, I think I actually commented that for sure he seems like a creep, but also I wouldn't be surprised if he gets arrested.
Yeah,
because he seems like the kind who would be doing some Diddy stuff, and that's sure enough what was arrested for, using his status to trick young men into, sort of like auditions and then drugging them and paying for sex. And so, yeah, but I know we're not supposed to say this, but he looks like a creep. So
no, he does. He certainly looks suspect. I mean, come on now. It's just ironic because I had such. I think I felt such vitriol for Abercrombie when it was around when I was a kid, because I clearly was not what they were going for. But the irony of it all is just that he was giving all these straight people a gay facelift with that fashion.
Another headline, 1 dead in multi-state E.coli outbreak tied to McDonald's Quarter Pounders.
It's too much meat.
Yeah.
We couldn't cook all the bugs.
So the CDC reported that at least 49 illnesses have been reported across 10 states with 1 death. Most of the infections are located in Colorado and Nebraska. And the CDC said that they are linking it to those slivered onions.
Okay.
So McDonald's has removed those from those areas, and they've also removed that quarter pounder patty meat. And of course, they're trying to work with suppliers to get a different and fresh supply of those things.
Okay. I invite everyone to go watch Fast Food Nation.
So,
how they get this meat.
That's not good for McDonald's, but it happens.
I only drink my own blood.
Okay, moving on. You said something funny to me when you wake up in the morning, it's like when like those videos of when bears come out of hibernation.
Uh-huh.
And you were especially kind of like out of it. And I asked you what was wrong. And then you had told me that you had a dream that you wrote a script for a movie called Diamonds in the Blood that starred Mel Gibson.
Yes.
And it was about blood infections and Viagra.
That's true. And I remember I came downstairs and I'm like, I have to say something about this now, because you know how dreams are, like a moment later you lose it. I'm like, I know I just had that, which reminded me there was another, I woke up, it wasn't like sleepwalking, but there was a weird incident last weekend.
You went out and I don't know what time you got home, but like at 5 a.m, you startled me because you were on my side of the bed digging in my nightstand. And I screamed, and I'm like, what's wrong? And you're like, oh, I'm trying to find something to pee in or something. And I'm just like, Joe, the devil is a liar.
I don't know what
I'm going back to bed.
But I had been dreaming something. See, that's why it takes so much for me to wake up. Like it takes a lot for me to go down. And when I go down, I go down.
People like you convince yourselves of that, but you could have normal sleep cycles if you wanted.
Oh, no, I go rolling in the deep. No.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm drinking wine. It's nighttime.
Anyway, moving on to the restaurant section. We tried 2 new places this past week.
Adventurers, yes.
We went to a place called Zarape Cocina and Cantina in West Hollywood off Santa Monica Boulevard. It's right across the street from those 2 restaurants, Merrick's and Basics.
Masic's
and Barrick's. Well, they're kind of like, because they're next to each other, they were kind of like institutions.
Yeah. I don't think Basics had the best food.
I don't think either had the best food, but they were popular. Like one of them was very popular for brunch,
and one did taco shit,
and then one did Taco Tuesday, and they were popular since before we moved here.
Those tacos, no,
and then
no.
during the pandemic, they didn't last.
Yeah, but I mean, the space, I don't know. I didn't peek around the corner, but Basics is still an empty storefront.
It's so odd that you would think that these are like prime real estate. And speaking of that, French Quarter Market is still.
Oh, I missed that.
Every time I drive by, which is very regularly, I just think I can't believe that this place couldn't stay open and that it's still empty. There must be some sort of dispute with the owners and maybe like family and who owns it. And
I don't know.
And then we tried a place downtown LA called Good Clean Fun.
Good Clean Fun.
And it's like a wine club, but they sell like hors d'oeuvres, cheese, salami, like stuff you would eat, like charcuterie.
They have pasta and pizza.
But they also have pasta and pizza. And we went for happy hour before we saw the Whitney movie. And I have to say, the space is interesting because it's on a main street downtown. So it's on Olive, which is, busy. And they only have outdoor seating. So they tried to create like
a little oasis.
An oasis. They had music playing. And at first I was a little stank about it. Like, I don't want to sit next to the speaker. And the gentleman who helped us, who on their website, he's like the picture. So I wonder if he's like the owner.
Oh, he was very affable.
Very, very friendly.
But this has never happened to me in how many years have I been eating out as an adult? He came up to me and he said, "Oh, here's a piece of paper something to put your gum in," because he knows.
I wrote that down. I was so impressed with that because it just like that, like attention is so like impressive, but also like it's so smart because I don't want your gum on my plate or you put it under my table or people do weird stuff with gum.
They do, and they didn't have paper napkins. So
no, and like I mean, I'm sure people out there who work in food would probably have more stories about the dumb shit people do with gum, chewing gum. But yeah, like I don't want your gum in my cloth napkins. So I was so impressed that he brought that paper for you.
Yeah,
but he was I thought he was very nice, and
he was wearing white socks with black shoes and pants, though.
It was very Michael Jackson, Billie Jean.
It was. I felt like Kathleen Turner and Serial Mom. Like
but he was handsome, so I think that was just his style. Like he seemed like that was his vibe.
Sure, but
the high water pants with the white socks.
It was a heterosexual style, yes.
But we ordered pizza, and I liked it.
It was a spicy pepperoni. Yes, I could have had 2 of them, but it was good. Because then you ate at Alamo Draft House too.
Yeah, I got like loaded fries.
Okay, so those asada fries you got at Draft House were much better than what you got at the Mexican restaurant the night before.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. At El Zarape, it was there. Oh, actually, we should rewind.
Oh,
the server was so friendly.
She was.
And they have a parking lot, and I parked my car literally, my car was parked right in front of where we were sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we joined hands, we could have touched the hood of my car. That's how close it was. So that would be a reason I'd go back. But you had a beer, so that's good. But I had a tamarind margarita, and I think that there was something wrong with that. I don't know.
No, it's when people try to do fancy shit because it had that smoky type flavor. And
you know what? You're right. They tried to, yeah, you're right. Because then we went somewhere else. And I ordered a tamarind.
You got it at Good Clean Fun.
Oh. No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
No, I got a Paloma.
Oh, wait. Fuck.
And a red wine. I got 3 I got a Paloma, some red wine, and I got one of those like Aperol spritz.
We were drinking somewhere else then.
Yeah, we were drinking somewhere else. Where did I get a tamarind margarita that was much better? Where did we go?
Were we at Takaya?
You're
we
right.
Were, yeah.
I never write down Takaya because we go there so often.
Well, because it's so simple and easy and semi-healthy.
Yeah, the tamarind margarita at Takaya was much better.
No, I got that one of my. Whenever I see it on the menu, I get it. That pork, that cochinita pibil burrito. Yum yum yum. Mm-hmm.
At El Zarape.
Yes,
it was good.
Yes, but the best I've ever had of that is at that place near LAX in Westchester.
Oh, I think it's called Pablo's Tacos. Maybe.
Yeah, that. Oh,
which
very good.
Don't let the name fool you. I would say that's probably my favorite Mexican restaurant in LA.
Don't let the interior decor fool you either, but that food is good. Yeah.
Let me make sure I'm saying, I want to make sure I say the right place.
It's right around the corner from that chain.
Oh, it's not Pablo's. It's Paco's
Tacos.
And it's in Westchester by LAX.
Mm-hmm. That parking lot can be a shit show, by the way.
Well, it's a shit show, but it's also huge. So the likelihood that you wouldn't find parking is low, but it is a shit show. But anyway, the name makes it sound like it's some little like food stand, but it's actually a really big restaurant, and the decor is a little...
It's very popular, though. It's always popping there.
But that food, my goodness, it is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, El Zarape, you got that burrito, which was fine. I thought it was a little small, but...
It was fine.
But I got carne asada fries, and that meat...
Ooh.
I didn't get the worst bits, but you said you got some gristly bits.
I got 3 bits of gristle, and
the loaded fries at Alamo Draft House were better, but they didn't have meat. They had bacon.
We also brought in our own half pie from Whole Foods.
We brought in half of a pie from Whole Foods. It was a brownie pecan pie. I think that it was really good, but it doesn't need the crust.
No, well, because it's not homemade crust. Homemade pie crust. There's nothing like homemade pie crust. Anyway, but I snuck that in my hoodie that you can purchase on our
fish jelly hoodie. So for anyone who's curious, the fish jelly hoodies, that front pocket will hold half a pie from Whole Foods. Okay, my sister wanted us to provide a PSA about neti pots.
Oh, I've used those. I have one.
She was saying that it is so important that when you use your neti pot that you use distilled water, because people are using tap water in their neti pot
and they're
getting infections.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you can buy distilled water from the grocery store, from CVS, Walgreens. It's not expensive.
Like if my mom used to buy distilled water for her iron,
or you should use it for your iron so you don't get that calcium whatever buildup.
Yeah, no, but that is true. But you can buy neti pots that also have a solution you put in the water. But it's like a saline solution. You absolutely should not use tap water. No,
but I mean, don't believe me? Look it up.
But also, I think there are differing opinions on
the efficacy of neti pots.
Yes,
yeah, but
I think if it feels good to you,
but there's a specific bacteria that attacks, like it's a brain-eating amoeba that what people have to worry about specifically with these neti pots and tap water. So
it's like old rice,
because your nasal passage is a pathway to your cranium. So I mean, be careful out there.
Be careful about. I think maybe the PSA should also be, but be careful about the shit you put in your nose.
Yeah,
it's very sensitive.
She also brought up a topic that I is probably controversial because we were all arguing about it at my mom's house, but I don't cook, so I don't know this, but I would love for people to comment. And maybe I'll make this a question. Actually, in the podcast, I can put questions that people can answer. So I want to know, do people wash their chicken before they cook it?
Yes.
Because I don't ever cook, so I now this is coming from someone who does not cook. So I'm just being honest, but you don't have to worry about me because no one out there will ever eat my cooked food because I don't cook. But I didn't realize you have to wash chicken. So I would just buy it. Like if I bought the organic chicken breast from Whole Foods and brought it home in the package, I would just cut it open and cook it.
No.
But my sister was like, hell no, you have to wash that shit. And then she was going on about how some people try to wash it in their dirty ass sinks. And it's like, the sink is dirtier than the toilet. Like you have to clean your sink properly with bleach before you even think about cooking. But then she was going on about other stuff like not using certain cutting boards. So
yeah, that is all part of it. But
I don't cook, so I don't know.
I mean, I bake us chicken all the time, and I brine it.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
You put it in lukewarm water for 15 to 20 minutes with some salt.
I know that you like to pound the hell out of chicken.
And I do pound the hell out of my chicken.
Because I can hear it upstairs.
Oh, yeah. No, I like flat chicken. I don't like big bulbous chicken. No, and it's also easier for cooking because if everything is of, the same height and width, you can better predict how it's cooking.
I want to know if people wash their chicken and what do they wash it with?
But it's like, like you should wash your vegetables. You don't know what things.
You should wash your ass.
Exactly.
Oh, and also I have to remind myself sometimes you have to wash behind your ears and you have to wash your belly button.
And between your toes.
Oh my God. I don't even think about that.
You don't? Oh, I do. I got shamed once, though, as a 20-something with someone I was dating, and never again. Never again.
Well, I have an aunt who, she didn't shame me, but she's like, oh, mijo, you should wash behind your ears. And of course, as a kid, it didn't occur to me, but as an adult, I cringe because I'm like, there's a reason she told me that because my shit probably smelled and looked dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you should moisturize and drink water.
You shower every day, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't say that because some people will be like, I don't have to shower every day.
No, and you don't have to wash everything the same way, and there's different protocol for hair.
Well, some of these celebrities like the Ashton Kutcher and Kristen Bell, I think those kind of people say that they don't bathe their kids every day. And I knew a family who the boy, like the older son, they lived in like a mansion, and the older son, they had like a steam room that was like the bath. This house was so big and nice that they had like a steam room in one of the bathrooms, and so he would just steam himself. Like he wouldn't use soap and water.
Okay.
But he never smelled.
Like steaming vegetables.
He never smelled. He had really nice skin. His hair was like, it never looked gross. So I don't know.
I think that's the thing too, though, is culturally we are conditioned to, we have to present a certain way. And yeah, like it's politeness and consideration and not stink if you are going to be in close proximity to others, depending on what you're doing. But I think we have kind of overdone it a lot and probably exposed our bodies to a lot more chemicals than we need to. And I think sometimes our own natural essence is better. But again, it's what are your plans for the day? What are you doing? Who are you exposing others to? That it's not. I think people just always want simple and they don't want to think about things, but you really should just be thinking about the balance of what's good for you and what's good for others.
Well, I'm not a scientist, but I'm assuming that there's sort of like a barrier of bacteria, flora that, is like on your skin that protects you.
It's just like when you're talking about, we fooled women into thinking that they needed to douche with Summer's Eve to smell a certain way. And it's like, but that's not good for the flora and fauna of your vagina.
So,
just because somebody doesn't like something, I don't know. Like, I think those are the sort of questions we should be asking. Like how much are we protesting about what we can smell of others?
Sure. But it's also, people should feel, whenever people ask me about washing their hair, I usually say like, well, whatever you feel comfortable with. Like if you feel dirty, you should probably wash your hair, but also you might be overly sensitive.
But if it's causing other health problems like dry scalp or like mildew, like then you need to look below, like why are you feeling dirty?
And also like being considerate, right? Like if you're in close proximity to other people, if you expect people to be intimate with you and smell gross, it's like, well, they're probably not going to want to do that. Anyway, films released we didn't cover.
Oh, that's a segue. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's kind of related. Black Box Diaries.
This is not really a good segue, I don't think. Black Box Diaries, I didn't see it. It sounds really good. Shiori Ito directed it. It's a documentary. She's a journalist who she embarked on her own investigation of a sexual assault that she experienced, and the attacker was a high-profile offender. And,
okay, never mind. That was not a good segue.
Yeah, there you go. But I'm reading this part. Her quest becomes a landmark case in Japan, exposing the country's outdated judicial and societal systems. So this sounds like something I need to see, but I haven't yet.
Dahomey.
This won the Berlin Film Festival this year. It's a documentary by Mati Diop about some artifacts going back to the rightful African heritage that had been plundered years prior. It's very short, but it's very interesting. I guess that I still think I remember feeling that it was a good choice for that one to win, but I would recommend it.
Don't move.
Don't move. This is a Netflix release from Brian Netto and Adam Schindler, and it's about a serial killer, I think, that paralyzes a woman, and then she has to somehow try to run away from him.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Oh, well, it's on Netflix right now.
La Cochina.
I think it's I think it might be La Cocina.
Oh, La Cocina.
Because I think I remember being corrected at Berlin by saying Cochina. but it's the kitchen. I'm getting confused now. It might be the wine.
Well, maybe it depends on what language it's in. Is it Italian?
No. It's the English language debut of Alonso Ruiz Palacios, and stars who I believe is Mexican, but it stars Rooney Mara, and Raul Briones is the male lead, who annoyed me to no end in this film. But it's very bombastic. I can see what he's going for, but to me it just doesn't work. I believe it's based on a play, but it's an ensemble about a kitchen staff in a Times Square kitchen, and all of their kind of desperate things they have going on, and people acting all out of sorts. I was highly annoyed by it, but I did talk to a few people that did call it a masterpiece. So decide for yourself, as always.
Magpie.
This I kind of was interested in seeing. I have no opinion about Daisy Ridley, basically, but I want to say she produced this with her husband or something. But it's about a couple who their young daughter is cast alongside some controversial person on a movie, and then it's a thriller. It's directed by someone named Sam Yates. But to me, that premise sounds really good, and that would be the reason I would see it. However, it's distributed by Shout Studios, which they don't have the best track record for their acquisitions to me, but I hope to catch up with it one day.
Memoir of a Snail.
This is an animated film. I think it's about a woman that collects snails or something, but it is directed by Adam Elliott. And I think we both were fans of his previous animated film, which is highly regarded, Mary and Max.
I don't recall that.
Oh, we watched it. I think we were living in Minneapolis when we watched it. It was that long ago, but and I remember Toni Collette does a voice, but it's a very emotional animated film that I have fond memories of. But anyway, Memoir of a Snail.
The Remarkable Life of Ibeline.
This is also a documentary, an animated documentary. Benjamin Ree is the director, and it's about this kid, a Norwegian gamer who had a degenerative muscular disease, and he died when he was 25. And then after his death, his parents, they thought he had this lonely life, but realized that he had this very rich experience online with all these other gamers, and that who reached out after he died. So it sounds like it might be kind of moving.
Lastly, Your Monster.
Carolyn Lindy directed this, and it stars Melissa Barrera. And it's about I believe it's about a woman that finds a monster in her closet and they fall in love.
Oh.
I think somebody had recommended you watch it, and I saw that you commented that it sounded interesting, but that was as far as that got with us.
It takes a lot for these things to transfer from the paper to my brain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Projects of interest, Scandalous.
So Coleman Domingo, who's riding high off of recent successes, is going to direct this film starring Sydney Sweeney and David Johnson. If you remember, David Johnson was, I thought, the scene stealer in Alien Romulus. And they will be playing, respectively, Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. in an apparent relationship that was, as the title suggests, scandalous. So that sounds good to me.
Prime time.
Robert Pattinson, I think, is circling this project, directed by Lance Oppenheim, and it has to do with that TV series To Catch a Predator.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Struggling to close deals? Cold outreach can be a waste of time, especially when using outdated data. That's why you need to be using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the first deep sales platform that will help you sell like a superstar in no time. And right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial. Visit linkedin.com/solutions today.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Unfortunately, there is an entry in the obituary section. Dick Pope
Uh-huh.
died.
Dick Pope died, yes.
Who is Dick Pope?
Ooh, he is a very notable cinematographer, sir. He worked a lot with Mike Lee. And what's funny, I believe he died yesterday. And today I saw his last film, which was he lends Mike Lee's latest, Hard Truths, which premiered in Toronto. And I just saw it today at the AFI Film Festival, which I actually really liked. I thought Marianne-Jean Baptiste is excellent in it, although very frustrating. And he died. And I just watched the last thing he will do. But very, very talented cinematographer.
The secret film this week was your choice, and you chose the 1983 Canadian science fiction body horror film, Videodrome, written and directed by a David Cronenberg. I'm familiar with that name.
You are. I'm a much bigger fan of his than you are.
How you know?
Well, because every time we watch one of his movies, you kind of have reservations, but...
And yet here we are watching another one.
Well, I don't know. I love him. Love him.
What is Videodrome about? A programmer at a Toronto TV station that specializes in adult entertainment searches for the producers of a dangerous and bizarre broadcast. Why did you choose this film?
Because it's Halloween-y season, and this is I haven't seen this in probably 20 years. And so I was hungry to do so. And recently you and I had a podcast. Well, we did a podcast on Naked Lunch, which is one of my faves. And we reviewed Crimes of the Future.
Okay. Well, I had never heard of this film. So let me try to describe it. I was a little confused, but I think I understand the basics. So James Woods plays this guy named Max, and Max runs like a public access television station,
Channel 83
in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And he has like an editor or some person who works at the station named Harlan. And one day Harlan's like, oh, let me show you something. Like, I found this weird transmission, because Max, James Woods, is trying to find new programming for the station that's like provocative. And we see him looking at like porn featuring some Asian ladies, but he's saying it's a little too like soft and elegant. He wants something a little more, edgy.
He wants hard. He wants something to break through.
Yeah. So Harlan shows him this show like that's supposedly coming through this unauthorized satellite feed called Videodrome. And it's basically like, it's almost like a snuff film.
It is a snuff. Yeah.
But, and then initially Harlan is telling, because James wants to know, well, where is it coming from? And Harlan's saying, well, based on the delay, it's probably Malaysia. But then later he realizes actually it's coming from Pittsburgh. Okay. So James is sort of fixated on Videodrome. He's also fixated on this lady played by Debbie Harry. Her name is Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie Harry's character, she has a radio show that had a funny name. It was called The Emotional Rescue Show. And it's kind of like, it's
like Dr. Joyce-ish.
But it's also like kind of sexual too.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, odd show.
We only hear her working once, and she refers to her callers as lover.
Yeah. But James Woods takes her home, and
she's a little freak.
And she is a freak.
She's a freak elite.
She likes pain, S&M, all that.
Because she's digging through his old raggedy box of VHS. She's like, what's Videodrome?
And he's like, well, it's kind of hardcore. She's like, boy, you ain't say nothing but a word. And the next thing you know.
It's great. And then she's like questioning. He's like, oh, let me turn it off. She's like, no, I'm actually turned on.
And then she tells this man, you want to try a few things? And this is after she's like, oh, you want to cut me on my shoulder? And he's like, what?
And then he looks at her shoulder and he's like,
clearly she's like cutting her shoulder.
Or other men have cut her shoulder lately.
And then after she says you want to try a few things, then we see them naked on the floor. They've been having sex. And we see that like he's piercing her ears. that to her is pleasure.
And then he's putting the bloody end of the needle in his mouth. I'm like, this is the AIDS crisis is happening right now.
But anyway, it turns out that Videodrome is actually this technology that's supposed to work like mind control, and that it's not happenstance that James Woods came across it. That editor operator guy, Harlan, was actually a plant by the people who are transmitting it, trying to get him to watch it so they can control him and use his station.
A TV personality, Brian, and his daughter Bianca Oblivion.
So the Oblivion, specifically Dr. Oblivion, he helped create this technology, but his intentions were not very like not necessarily insidious.
Mm-hmm.
But then he partnered with some corporation and called Spectacular
Optical.
Mm-hmm. And their front is like they sell eyewear.
Because there's like keeping an eye on the world, which of
yeah.
course is metaphorical.
But of course, this corporation is trying to basically like control people. So when they realized that Dr. Oblivion was in the way and they already had the technology, they just killed his ass. And they kill him by... We find out that the transmissions cause like brain tumors because they're still refining the technology. So early viewers are going to like got sick.
But in true Cronenbergian fashion, as we've seen this, including in Crimes of the Future, are they tumors or new organs?
But ultimately, James Woods is sort of like the mind control works on him. And he kills like all the executives at the station so that he has full control, of broadcasting something.
So that he can give it over to Spectacular Optical.
And then he goes to the head of Spectacular Optical, kills him, and then goes into hiding. And then Videodrome, in today's language, we would call it like AI.
Mm-hmm.
Videodrome then convinces James Woods to kill himself. The end.
Through the spectacle of Debbie Harry, yes.
The film is short. It's under 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading that the original cut was like 75 minutes, but then audiences were like, we don't understand what the hell's going on. I still feel like, not that I wanted it to be longer because it did feel a little tedious to me. But the thing that I'm most confused by is a symptom of the transmission and the mind control is hallucinations, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little confused with what was real and what's not. Although I think in the context of the story, it all makes sense. Like these themes are very interesting to talk about.
I agree. But I think that disorientation is on purpose.
Yes.
Because there's in the early setup, there are all these like kind of very obvious insinuations about how your private life is not real. Only life through the TV is real. We become not just indoctrinated. It's become television has evolved to become part of our DNA, literally. And that if you're not seeing it projected somewhere, and then the film in that way is, among many ways, very prescient. It's not really happening. So once we go down that path, we kind of rewrite the past as well. So there's within the mechanics of this film narrative, looking back makes no sense because everything is distorted.
I would highly recommend this film for people who haven't seen it, because to think that this film is, over 31 years
mm-hmm.
and the themes are so they just feel so appropriate for what's going on today. And to think of course, the writer director, how, I'm sure was not thinking about things like AI or even like personal devices that would access something called the World Wide Web. But still, this idea of like, as technology grows and as people have more access to information, they also have more opportunity to be influenced. And what does that look like?
Well, and also we become woefully desensitized to sex and violence.
And then what does it mean to have more access to sex and violence? And I think it's kind of a mind trip to think like, well, the future is now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, I think we can answer the questions that are brought up in this movie. I think the only thing that this story doesn't account for, because I think a lot of sci-fi movies from the late 70s, early 80s, it's pretty predictable, like the trajectory of mankind throughout history, that the more access people get and the more people want to control that. And there are patterns, but I think the one thing that you often see that maybe they don't get right is that everyone will ultimately have access to a lot of this. Like most people in so sort of like more modern areas who have access to it have like internet and personal mobile devices. Anyone can, because the character of Dr. Oblivion, he doesn't interact with people one-on-one. He only communicates via pre-recorded videos.
He prefers the monologue, his daughter says.
He prefers monologues, which to me feels very much like YouTube, TikTok, and like Instagram reels, like where people are kind of putting out this content of like presenting themselves and oftentimes talking about stuff.
But there's no way back to them. There's no way to confront them.
Well, and there's no way to alter them. There's, I mean, unless you totally erase it, there's no, and then depending on how viral something goes, there really is no way to erase. Like, so you can't really evolve to evolve your thoughts requires a lot of effort. Right, because then you'd have to put out an equal number of videos countering opinions. That's why I always think it's funny when people get caught up like, 10 years ago on Twitter, you had a year-long rant about blacks. And now all of a sudden you're trying to say that you aren't racist. It's like, it's going to take more than one post when you spend a year talking some crazy shit. So, aside from that, I think it's really remarkable that this, like, I mean, it's kind of scary how relatable
that this still is,
are,
even though the mechanism is really a VHS tape that is the catalyst for the body horror.
Yeah,
but even with that, it's still very. There's a sinister creepiness that is inescapable, even from I think how over the top the film really is.
Okay, I just want to get through my few little notes. Debbie Harry is so beautiful. And I'm sure I'm not familiar with her filmography. Did she do a lot of movies?
Hairspray.
But I mean, she's actually in this film, I thought she was very good. Like,
yeah, she is. And of course, she dyed her hair that brownish red.
You know what I wrote down? I thought she looked like a combination of Madonna during the Hung Up era combined with like a brunette Michelle Pfeiffer.
Sure. Yeah. All of those women exist on a particular spectrum.
Her character's a little freak though, because besides the cutting her shoulders and talking about I want to try a few things, getting her ears pierced, then at one point she says she wants to audition for Videodrome, which we see is like a snuff film.
Yeah, she goes to
Woods
Pittsburgh.
Is like, don't do that. And then at one point, she and James are like on his couch and he's smoking a cigarette and she asks for his cigarette and burns her titty. Like, this lady is crazy.
She made me more uncomfortable. I don't really care for James Woods as a screen presence. His performance is fine in this to me, but she made me more uncomfortable than him.
There's something about James Woods that makes me a little, and I think it's because he reminds me of someone I knew, and it kind of, and I don't have fond memories of that person.
Sure.
So
yeah,
but he does a good job of being a creep.
He also, like, watching him at this age, he looks like he could be Shelley Duvall's brother, but in the way, in this, I guess this is shade, but in the way, in a kind of unappealing, because I like Shelley Duvall, so he could be like, he's like her unappealing brother in a way that Peter Fonda is the unappealing looking brother of Jane Fonda. Oh, is the thought I had.
God, when we meet Dr. Oblivion's daughter, Bianca, she is rude.
Oh, yeah. She's like, you look like one of my dad's derelicts.
So James Woods is hallucinating, and one day his assistant comes to his house, and he slaps the shit out of her, thinking that it's Debbie Harry, but then we realize that it was all in his mind. And the assistant's like,
but no, she's bridey. She's frustrating because he's like, God, I just hit you. And she's like, you didn't hit me. And then she's like, maybe I should stay. No, girl, this man is going through some things. You need to get out.
So we see that Dr. Oblivion recorded like thousands of monologues. So there's this huge catalog to reference, which again makes me think of like people's social media presence and how, like, you know, if you were to ever become a person of note and then you have like thousands of hours of like you just running your mouth and people, like, I mean, imagine if like you became like very notable,
or you
or me, like all the things that like all the clips people could pull of me saying crazy things.
I mean, it's kind of wearying,
splicing them together to create a narrative, and that's exactly what Dr. Oblivion's daughter is doing. She's kept, because he's at this point he's been dead for 11 months, but then we see in the opening of the film he's like doing an interview via
in responding to the journalist questions.
But that's because he has so much content that his daughter's able to splice together like full thoughts and responses.
Because what did I just send you? Somebody did a montage cut up to Madonna's Vogue. All the lyrics are taken from movie clips elsewhere.
Other people's dialogue. So I mean, I think that was kind of blowing my mind. The practical effects. I know Cronenberg is known for body horror. I do think some of the effects are really effective, particularly the TV.
Oh yeah,
like how
Debbie Harry's mouth
and him kissing her mouth on the TV that looks like a big old like beanbag, but it's not like cheesy like that. It looks really good. But then I also think for as much that I thought looked really cool, a lot of it felt like, I hate when people say self-indulgent, but it just felt like you couldn't help yourself. Like you really just like the gross out body horror stuff, and some of it looked a little like, oh, had you shown some restraint, we might not have had some of the more cheesy moments.
I don't know. I don't see him as cheesy. I think there's something kind of subversive about this man having this vaginal like aperture in his abdomen that these men keep stuffing things into.
I think the first time we see it, it's very effective, but the second time and the third time, it's like, we could, because then the final time.
But the third time he becomes like a dentata.
Well, but yes, that's true. But I think that the first time we see the guy put the tape in, we don't see him actually insert it. But then once his hand's in there, then it bites off his hand. Or like when the head of Spectacular Optical gets shot and then we see his body kind of like disintegrate. I thought that looked, but then the effect, or like James Woods at a point, like the gun, he's holding like a handgun and then the handgun sort of morphs into his hand. And I thought the effects of the gun morphing looked kind of cheesy.
I think, sure.
But then the final result looked really cool.
I agree. But
so that's what I mean. I think the result is cool, but sometimes the getting there was like, we didn't need that maybe.
I don't know. I'd still have I have a fondness for those moments. It didn't pull me out of it rewatching it, but I think he would hone some of that better, like with the body melding weapons and existence, for instance. Like there's a lot of groundwork laid for other things that he would pursue later on. This notably was the first time he'd received any Hollywood coin, and the movie was a big flop when it came out. But it comes out right after Scanners, which is a film that's spawned several sequels, but is very famous for exploding heads. And then right after this, he would do The Dead Zone, which we have a podcast on, I believe.
Okay.
And then, of course, The Fly, which, if you think about The Fly versus, it's a remake, but the versus Videodrome, you can really see Cronenberg taking a step back to have something that is a little more accessible, is what I think he was doing with The Fly, which is probably maybe still one of his best, most well-renowned films.
I think a theme, well, it's not really a theme, but so Videodrome ultimately is kind of like has a mind of its own. So then like I said, in modern language, you might think it's like AI, or also the way it's talked about. I also felt like you could see it as like Wi-Fi, and like Wi-Fi giving you access to the things that were, once difficult to get, like the kind of information or visuals or, sound that would have been difficult to get access to before. Because then there's this old freaky ass lady,
Masha,
who is kind of like, she calls it the
subterranean,
which is kind of like smut, like subversive stuff that, just isn't easily accessible. She's kind of like the person to go to for it. And I think it's interesting that, it's like the transition from this sort of gatekeeper in a way of this kind of material to then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's just going to be shot out to everyone.
Right, but she's initially a warning to James Woods, whose name is Max Wren. She's like that warning that pops up, must be 18 to enter. Like Videodrome, you don't want that.
Well, and that's exactly how I felt about it. Like, oh, now that younger people have access to explicit material, or, even like content that people shouldn't be viewing, like explicit material that's inappropriate for even adults to view.
Mm-hmm.
But then because of, let's say, the dark web, people have access to it. Whereas maybe 40 years ago, you couldn't, the fact when things are more difficult to get, that in itself is a barrier, right? So then you but to think nowadays, we see that, what are the effects of people having such easy access to stuff, which is what I interpreted that Masha lady to be. I thought that was really, again, it's just so crazy to watch this movie 40 years. I think I said 30 earlier. 41 years after it was made, and to have it feel so relevant. What did you think about the hallucination machine? That
I thought that was VR. That was giving me that's what is virtual reality now.
Because the guy who runs Spectacular Optical tells James, I'm trying to help you because most people who get this transmission, it doesn't end well for them. So I'm going to have you put on this machine like VR so we can see what your hallucinations are. But I was trying to connect that to what I think that could mean today.
What, like our search histories?
Our search histories.
It's sort of data mining, because because based on what the machine is observing us see, they're able to deduce all these things about us and all these roadmaps, and then feed us back into this endless loop, for various reasons that can manipulate us, like as a consumer, or for more insidious means.
I also thought it was like, for people who do have like an online presence with social media or whatever it may be, like what you choose to put out there kind of tells your story. So like that is your reality. Like that's how people see you.
It's a part of your reality. It's
not actual reality, but it's like to the people.
It's an avatar of yourself.
Yeah. Like for the people who are only experiencing you in that way, it's, it says a lot about a person, right? Like,
it does, but I think that
if all your pictures are of you working out and, I think selfies with that awkward, like blocked chin mouth that people like to make. Anybody
that's online or anything, and it also knows people that they're friends with online, sees that there's a disparity between that and the reality of the life the person is living usually.
The mantra that James Woods says before he kills himself is "Long live in the new flesh." Flesh. I have to use the bathroom. No. I thought that was very interesting, because before he kills himself, he's hallucinating, seeing Debbie Harry in the TV, and she's telling him, like, in order to get to the next level, you need to like remove yourself from this.
The next level of battling Videodrome.
Yeah.
So he has found a decommissioned ship in the Toronto harbor. And on this ship, where it looks like a bunch of unhoused people have squatted before, he finds this very nice looking TV that Debbie Harry's, what's her name? Nikki Brand's face pops up on. And so this is right after he has killed Barry Convex, who is the head of Spectacular Optical. So the entity that's wanting to hone and manipulate Videodrome. So Videodrome has manipulated Max Wren, James Woods, into an assassin to get rid of the person. So, and then they wipe their slate clean by killing the assassin, is how I was reading that. So Debbie Harry tells him to kill himself, and she shows him an image of him killing himself, and the TV explodes with all these organs, like they have become one. And then we see him, and then I think that's actually kind of brilliant. Like we see him
I thought that was a really good scene.
He enacts the visuals that were presented to him.
Yeah. What would you give Videodrome?
It is not my favorite Cronenberg, and maybe I'm just hanging too much on my general dislike for James Woods as a screen presence, but I do really like this film. I think it was a lot of fun to rewatch as a wholly formed adult. But I'm going to give it 3.5.
I would highly recommend watching it with people and having a conversation. I think it's so interesting as a conversation piece, but as like a film watching experience, like if you're hoping to sit down and it just feel like it was a little bit of work. Like the priority was not sort of having a plot that made sense necessarily, and I don't know. I would give it 3 out of 5. Okay. Next week, I know we're seeing The Piano Lesson based on the August Wilson play. And we're seeing Night Bitch.
Yeah, there's a screening of that. But next week's release is our new Liam Neeson film, Clint Eastwood's Juror Number 2.
I think the videos for Amelia Perez and Blitz are dropping next week.
Yes, that's true. And then I'm seeing at AFI, but here, the new Robert Zemeckis, the reunion of Robin Wright and Tom Hanks.
Well, that's all we have, unless there's something else you want to say.
No.
All right, ta-ta.